Okay, I'm going to review Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. This video is gonna come out in a while because I haven't even watched the 6th movie yet. I mean, I've read all the Harry Potter books up to the Crimes of Grindelwald. I'm on the Crimes of Grindelwald screenplay right now, and I'm just recording this video super early. This video is gonna come out in like a couple weeks from when I'm recording it, because I'm gonna release it in order. But there is no movie for this, so I don't have to wait to watch a movie like the other ones. I have to watch a movie every 2 weeks. So yeah. Also, this is gonna be a spoiler review because okay. Thing is, I didn't like this book. I really didn't like this book. There's so many things that I thought were just so bad, and if you see here, that is all the good stuff. Please work. That is all the good stuff that I liked, and this is all the bad stuff that I liked. I mean, that I hated. Not that I liked. I didn't like the bad stuff, but there's just so many things that didn't make sense. I'm going to go through each one that I have on that list there of good and bad. It's just going to be a long video, but just stay there. If you've already read the book. If you haven't, then go read the book, come back, because otherwise this video's not going to make much sense. But anyways, I'm going to get started with the good. First off is a thing that a lot of people probably disagree on, because I've heard a lot of people say, oh, this is just so bad. But the trolley witch from the beginning, I thought, okay, it was pretty bad. I do agree with that. It was really weird and didn't fit at all. And she's has claws, which is so funny, but I think that's why I like it. She has claws, and she's like, no one gets off the train. And then the other people, just Albus and Scorpius, just jump off the train. Like, okay, they got off the train. But I don't like that part. But what I do like is the trolley witch character. I thought that she was funny. Honestly, she probably it's just, a lot of this book is just I don't like reading it. It just I feel like torture reading this book. But the trolley just was really funny to me, how bad it was. So that's why I put it in the good, because overall it probably raised the score a couple percentages, just because it's funny in a book that's really not funny but just stupid. Another thing is that there's a lot of flashbacks in here, and I think that the flashbacks probably are really cool. There's simple flashbacks. There's flashbacks to where I think Hagrid first meets Harry, or Petunia and Harry are just talking, but they're interesting. They make sense, and I think that it's not good because it just feels like filler, but it is fine. Next is Delphi's betrayal in the 3rd act. I just thought that was really, really surprising. I'm not sure if it was good or bad, but it was surprising, and it helped make the story more interesting than it was if it wasn't, because it's just more interesting when she betrays them. It's just much more it makes me engaged in the story more when a character betrays someone, because it makes me oh, that character just betrayed someone. It makes me pay attention. So that's why I thought that most people don't like it. And there's a lot of stuff I hate about Delphi's reveal, which I'll get into more in the bad. Next, Cedric returns, and it's a pretty weird moment, but it's Cedric returns first a little bit. If he came back alive, I wouldn't have liked that, and that would be something I really hated. But he did, show his face for a couple seconds, and Albus was like, your parents love you. And Cedric's like, what are you talking about? Can I go? And then Albus is like, yes, finish it. and Cedric has no idea what's going on. I thought that was funny, and I like that we saw Cedric again, even if for just a little bit, because there's a lot of fan service in this book, but I think that is part where fan service is done right, and not the Snape stuff, which I'll get into later, because I really hated Snape in this book. But also, Delphi has a pretty creative plan. My memory, I'm already forgetting some of the stuff about the end Delphi, but I do remember Delphi had this really cool plan of waiting for Voldemort to come to stop him from doing Harry so that Voldyland could come. That was really interesting for me. I thought that was creative. Like, it's something that anyone could think of. But it was interesting, especially with all the time travels. It does the question where, like, normally when you think of time travel, it's like, why don't you just go back all the way over here and fix all the problems, go to when Voldemort was a baby and kill him. She's going to when Harry is a baby and stopping Voldemort. It's going to the root of the problem and trying to fix it. I thought that was pretty cool. Next thing is at the very end, Harry witnesses his parents dying, and he has the chance to save them, but he can't because that'll ruin everything. But it's such a good moment. I feel like that should have been in the 7th book, Harry going back and seeing his parents, because I just thought that was such an interesting moment, and there's like, it's so good. And that's the end for the good. 6 minutes of good, probably like 30 minutes of bad. But I don't know. You know, but I don't. Next, we're going to go to the beginning. The writing is... Okay, I don't have a problem with plays. I know a lot of people say, oh, you didn't like The Cursed Child just because it's a play. And it's actually a really good story. It's just a play. And I don't... It's fine. I don't care about reading plays. I prefer reading books rather than plays because they're more descriptive and stuff, but they just have better, like, writing. This and thing is this, the first thing is boring writing. That's the thing. The play isn't well written for a play. One of my friends was like, well, obviously, it's a play. It's not going to be interesting. But for a play, it's not very well written. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that's just, like, stuff is, oh my god. Like, there's a part where where Hermione's, like, filled with anger and of something. I'm trying to find that, because that was such a weird thing to say. It's just, I don't understand. It just, like, it's so weird. It's just like, why didn't you choose to say something else? Can't you say Hermione was, at least say, like, this is pretty boring, but just say Hermione was angry, instead of, like, Hermione was filled with fumes of rage or whatever it said. I don't even know, because it was weird, and I didn't like that. Okay, I can't find it, but whatever. It was weird, and they had a lot of other moments like that, where it's just, why? Next, I'm going to talk about something that a lot of people talk about, which is Albus's name, and basically Harry's all of his children's names. Why? Okay, first off, all of his children are named after things that Harry's parents, the person who was like a stand-in grandpa, I don't know, Dumbledore, whatever, and Snape, the person who was also connected to Harry's mom. Where is Ginny? Like, why doesn't Ginny name one of her children Fred? Like, I get there is a child named Fred. I think he's George's son is named Fred, but this person can also be named Fred. There doesn't have to only be one Fred in this whole thing. And yeah, I'm going to talk about this later once we get to the other ones, but I don't think that every single character should be married to someone from Hogwarts. Like, Draco was married to someone from a different place, but literally everyone. George married Angelina. Hermione married Ron. Ginny, Harry, and then those they all like married people who were in the same high school. It's weird, okay, but back to the names because oh my god, but Albus's name is just like it's weird. Pick one. Why do you have Albus and then Severus? Like Albus Severus? That just sounds horrible. Like pick one. Oh my gosh. It's like jeez. Pick Albus or Severus, not Albus Severus. Like it's so bad. And then next is the Albus and Scorpius. Albus and Scorpius, they don't fit together at all. Like they're not people you would think would be friends with each other. They're so different. And they're so, like, bland. That's my next one. Bland and unlikable characters. Albus is just this bad guy that everyone thinks is a good guy. Scorpius is this good guy that everyone thinks is a bad guy. And then Rose is basically the same thing as Hermione. James is just this mean older brother. And then there's just so much stuff like that. For the new characters, is that they're not creative at all for these new characters. They're so different and boring and unlikable. Albus, he's so unlikable. And Harry especially. I really hate Harry in this book, but Albus was just annoying. The only character that I thought was kind of good was Scorpius. And even Scorpius I thought was like okay. Like he didn't get a full character arc. So it's just like okay, I don't really care about Scorpius, and all the other characters just either ruined their character if they were the legacy characters, or the new characters are so boring, basic, and unlikable that it's just, you don't care about any of them. Next, what I have on my list is time travel, and I don't like how they did the time travel in this. In the third book, it's a loop. I didn't like how they did it in the third book either. I thought in the third book it was really weird and didn't make any sense because, if Buckbeak never died, then why did Hagrid be like, oh, Buckbeak's dead, I'm so sad, even though he never died? I mean, he did, like, run away, but in the new timeline, Hagrid was like, he's dead. They killed him. Not, he's missing. Because they're two different things. Missing is not the same as someone dead. And how they did it in The Cursed Child, though, was I like it better. It makes more sense. But it still has more questions than answers. I wish they didn't do time travel, because time travel, I never enjoy time travel. And in this, they make it so weird. Like, they have it, instead of like a loop, they have it where it branches off in different timelines. So, in one timeline, Harry is dead and Voldemort rules. Okay. It's like, it's not a loop anymore. And that just made me so confused when reading that. And it made, like, I was really confused and I really didn't like it. Act 2 was my least favorite act. If I had to rank the acts, which I did, Act 4 was the best, then Act 3 was the second best, Act 1 was next, and then Act 2 was the worst. It was just like, I didn't like it. And then I just briefly talk about the time travel because there's more time travel stuff later down. I don't want to spend too much time there. But the legacy characters act nothing like what they should. Hermione and Ron act like they barely even know each other. Dumbledore is acting like Han Solo, where he's just like acting so cool. And McGonagall is really strict. Like, she's strict in the original one, but she's just like being rude to some people. And they don't act like the characters at all. Like, I get that they could change in 20 years, but still, like, McGonagall and Dumbledore, okay, they're not going to change in 20 years. Harry, Harry. And then we have Ginny, which Ginny is the only one that makes sense. She's still not perfect, but she makes sense at least. While Harry, wow, you think Harry would be a great dad? Turns out he's not. And he does some stuff that we'll talk about later. But, okay, so that's just, and this is kind of small, and I have a lot of big ones like that, and the time travel thing. Then I have a lot of small ones like this. Why didn't this book come out 19 years later? It came out, I mean, technically it did. It came out 19 years later after book 1. But that isn't 19 years later after the end of the series, because this should say, because this book is the A story 19 years later, and it's like, oh yeah, it is actually released 19 years later. 19 years after book 1 came out, not after book 7 came out, when, like, how the timeline should be. Just a minor thing that I thought was kind of annoying. Next one, Harry, oh, okay, this goes into the, characters just being super different, but Harry's just super mean to his children, especially Albus. And this also goes with something that I had listed later, but Harry, in one moment of the story, he says, Albus, I wish you were never my son. What the heck, man? Like, geez, Harry, like, that's not something that Harry would do. If you've paid attention to the first 7 books, you'd think, oh, Harry would be a pretty good dad. No, he's not. And also, the beginning of this book, and at the epilogue of the 7th book, the only reason I mention that is because, you know, it's in the original series. Harry tells Albus that it doesn't matter if you are in Slytherin, because I named you after a Slytherin headmaster who was the bravest man I know. And that's already a stupid line, because it's not the bravest man that Harry knows. There's like 20 other brave people that are braver than Snape. Like, come on. Like, Harry literally called him a coward in the 6th book, which I guess is kind of ironic, but yeah. It's interesting. I still don't buy that he's the bravest person Harry knows, but... And then Albus gets into Slytherin. So Harry gets super mad at Albus. He's like, you're a Slytherin. You're supposed to be a Gryffindor. Why are you in Slytherin? This makes no sense. This is why you're so mean all the time, because you're just so rude at everyone, especially me. Like, oh, geez, Harry, you said it didn't matter if he was Slytherin. Don't get mad at him because he's Slytherin. Tell him that Slytherins are good. It's like, come on, Harry. What is wrong with you? Then there's a couple spelling errors in this book, which is another minor one along with the year, is that when I was reading this, I was like, or in punctuation, there was just a couple ones where they try to spell one word, but they left out a letter, and it's like, this doesn't really feel professional if you leave out letters and do incorrect punctuation. But, okay. I also don't think how it made sense that after the first time travel, when Ron married Padma Patil, Hermione just got so angry at everyone. Like, she became a professor, and she was like, I'm the strictest teacher, stricter than McGonagall, stricter than Snape, stricter than Umbridge. And then, I don't understand that. Why? And then, also, Ron goes into class one day, and he's like, hey, Hermione, and hey, Professor Granger, like, okay, maybe that was a joke, that maybe he was just joking around, but why? She's been a professor for a long time. It's not new. It doesn't make sense. And then they act like they barely know each other. They're just like, oh, hi. Hey. Long time no see. And they just, like, stare at each other. It's just like, aren't they friends? They're still not friends? Like, just because they're not married doesn't mean they're not friends anymore. I don't understand that. Next one. The characters are poorly based on the characters from the first 7 books. They're so poorly based. I already said Rose is basically the exact same thing as Hermione, and then we have the trio in this book: Delphi, Scorpius, and Albus. And Scorpius is obviously Harry, a good guy everyone thinks is a bad guy. Albus is obviously Ron, but he doesn't quite fit Ron. Like, Ron's not a bad guy, whoever thinks is a good guy. But just the way he talks, like the way he makes jokes to people, it sounds like Ron. And then we have Delphi, who is supposed to be Hermione, which she's not smart. Like, she's not smart like Hermione, but she acts like a Hermione to the 2 other people. And especially then they go to Polyjuice Potions and they become those characters. It's like, yeah, we already knew that you're basing them off of the old characters. You have to shove it in our face. And it's just weird. Next one, I don't understand how Snape is alive in Voldemort world. How? Like, so in the 7th book, or in this time travel stuff, the time travel stuff, the main cause is because Neville doesn't kill Nagini, and Snape dies before Neville kills Nagini in the 7th book. So he should still be dead. It doesn't make sense for him to be alive in this one, because all the stuff happened after Neville was unable to kill Nagini. Snape, and more stuff about Snape. Why does Scorpius know so much about Snape in this timeline? Like, I get that Albus is named after him, so of course Scorpius and Albus talked about who they're named after, I guess, even though I don't talk about who I'm named after to people. But I guess they talked about who they're named after. How does, Albus know so much about Snape? Like, I don't know how, if in the beginning of the book, they're like, oh, I named you after the first man I met, and he was a Slytherin. Okay, so. And, they don't even really care about that. And then in this one, Scorpius knows all about Snape for some reason. His entire thing, Rita Skeeter did not make a biography about him, so how? Okay, next is, I had to do my phone thing. My phone ran out of storage, so I have to do this. Okay, so we're talking about Voldemort's daughter, and I don't think that Voldemort would have a daughter. It doesn't make any sense. Especially with Bellatrix Lestrange, and when? Bellatrix was never pregnant in the 6th and 7th books, when it said that she was pregnant, which doesn't make any sense, but it said that Bellatrix had a baby around the 6th and 7th books. When? In Malfoy Manor? Definitely not. Before Draco or any of the other Malfoys didn't see this. It doesn't make any sense. Hermione doesn't like the name Weasley. Okay, yeah, I don't know why Hermione's last name isn't who would want their last name to be Weasley? But why can't Harry still speak Parseltongue? He has to speak it for something, I forgot. But why can he still speak it? He's not a Horcrux anymore. It doesn't make any sense. Why can he still speak Parseltongue? He's not a Horcrux. He's not connected to Voldemort. He shouldn't be able to speak Parseltongue or understand it. The trio never realize. Oh, the trio are never realize that at the end that they were polyjuiced. They were impersonated by the other people. They never realize that, and especially since Albus kisses Hermione, his aunt. It's weird. And also Hermione and Ron never talk about that for some reason, or about that conversation that they had during that moment. because Ron said some pretty big things, but okay. I put how is Snape alive in Voldy World twice? Okay, but also I put like something with fan service. They bring back so many characters that like for like no reason. Just I don't know why they bring in so many characters. It doesn't make any sense. Scorpius knows Snape. Okay, I'm just repeating myself. How does Scorpius know Snape's whole life? Okay, I already said that. Also, okay, this is a big one. Why is Snape so fun? Like, Snape is, like, making jokes with Hermione and Ron, and it doesn't make sense. Like, he's not acting like his character. He's acting completely different. He doesn't, like... He trusts Scorpius immediately. After Scorpius is, like, tells him all that stuff, Snape's like, yeah, I can trust you by telling all the secrets of everything that, like, literally anyone could know. Like, Umbridge, if they could find out, they already know that Snape sacrificed himself or not Snape sacrificed himself, but Snape and Lily, that, like, stuff about that. Anyone could figure that out. Anyone could know. Leaving... Oh, okay, this is a lot of things that they just, like... The author keeps forgetting simple things. Here's the two things. First off, at the very beginning of the book, Lily is like, oh, I'm gonna go follow the train. And everyone's like, okay, bye, catch up with us. And then it says that all the adults walk away. Where's Lily? She's just at the train? She's just there? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Then another thing is, why is Moaning Myrtle making death jokes? She was really, like, sensitive about that in the second book. Like, she was like, oh, I don't like to think about that. And now she's just, like, making death jokes. Like, oh, yeah. It just doesn't make any sense. McGonagall is still teaching at 150 years old. Like, that's pretty old to be teaching. Alohomora at least that's what I think. I don't know why McGonagall... I don't know the exact age, but why is she still teaching? It's if she was, like... I don't know. But maybe she was adult. I heard something said she was, like, 40-something, but still, it doesn't make any sense for her to be... teaching when she's 70. Because there was, like, something that's, like... She was, like, 47 or something. And... Alohomora can open the Minister of Magic's office, which doesn't make any sense. Like, you think that they would have more protection over the Minister of Magic's office instead of someone just coming in there saying Alohomora and opening it that anyone can do. They literally teach you that in the first year because Hermione knew the spell in the first year to get to the fluffy place. And then, I already talked about the timeline stuff. There's more timeline. Oh yeah, the Time Turner, the Hourglass, is treated like something very, like, serious. That's like dark magic. Like, no one uses it because it, like, changes everything. Hermione was hiding it. But then why did McGonagall and Dumbledore give it to Hermione in Book 3 to take a couple extra classes? If it's, like, treated like such dark magic. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Albus... Oh, I already talked about Albus. Okay. The duo... Oh, this is a big one. The duo wears Durmstrang robes when going back in time. Why? Like, I don't understand that. Like, they're like, okay, well, maybe because the Hogwarts people will recognize us. So, they go in Durmstrang robes. And so it's like, oh, different people. First off, Hogwarts is a big enough school. Like, they're not going to, like... Some people aren't going to know certain people. Like, Harry sure didn't know everyone in the whole year. Like, obviously. Even in my school, there's people that I don't even know, that I've never seen before, and they're in the same grade as me, but I just don't even know what their face looks like, so... Doesn't really make sense. And also, why pick Durmstrang? Like, seriously. Durmstrang didn't bring all the people at their school. They only brought, like, a handful of them. And they only bring 17 and up-year-olds who can perform in the Triwizard Tournament. And aren't they going to notice a couple of 14-year-olds that none of the Durmstrang people recognize because they brought, like, a couple people? Not a couple, but, like, 20 people. from Durmstrang, aren't they going to notice that some 14-year-olds are just running around in Durmstrang robes when they didn't even bring 14-year-olds to go to the Triwizard Tournament? It doesn't make much sense. Now I'm on the second page, so we're almost done. Harry threatens McGonagall. I don't know why, but Harry's like, you better watch Albus and Scorpius on the map. You have to. And then he's like saying, like, he's just threatening McGonagall and to watch them, and if they're in trouble, then if they're together, then they have to, like, go talk to them, which, jeez, that's rude. I know McGonagall's not acting like herself, but you don't have to not act like yourself either. Albus and Gorgio's underwater. Yeah, I don't know how that happens when they go back in timeline to mess up the second thing to do some humiliation that ultimately leads to Voldyworld. Albus, I feel like it was Scorpius, but I guess Albus, in Gorgio's underwater. Like, I don't understand that because the only way Harry couldn't use the spell underwater in the fourth book, and the only way that Albus could have used Engorgio underwater is if it was a non-verbal spell, which means that which they don't even teach non-verbal spells until the 6th and 7th books. So 6th and 7th years, and Albus is only in the 4th year. So are they now making you learn non-verbal spells in the 4th year? Not even the 4th year, because they didn't even go to the 4th year. So the 3rd year? Like, jeez. And also, why does Harry's scar hurt? Like, I don't understand. He's not connected to Voldemort anymore, and he was connected to Voldemort the Horcrux. And it doesn't mean, just because Delphi is Voldemort's daughter, that he's connected to her. Like, no, because he's not Horcrux connected, all the weird stuff. He's not connected, so his scars shouldn't be hurting. Everyone says Voldemort's name in Voldyworld. Like, they're all just like, oh yeah, Voldemort's the ruler now. Yes, that's Voldemort. Okay, let's go. Before, in the first 7 books, no one spoke Voldemort's name. Even his followers, they call him the Dark Lord, because either they're scared, because also he could, like, teleport people who come and say their name to torture them. They're not allowed to say his name. And even, like, Bellatrix Lestrange, whenever someone said Voldemort's name, she was like, you dare say Voldemort's name? Because you have to call him the Dark Lord. Also, why didn't Snape, Ron, and Hermione use Patronus Charm when sacrificing themselves to the Dementors? Like, I don't understand that. Like, they're getting their souls sucked out. I'm pretty sure there was a cool scene in the theater. And it's a cool scene when reading this book. It's like, yeah, it's a pretty cool scene. It's pretty intense. But the coolness is taken away from it when they could have done something else to save them. Like, sacrificing yourself only works if there's no other options you have to do that. And there's many other options that they could have done. They could have Patronused, which seems like the most logical. Even if they said that they can't for some reason, they could have. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, it was just some small little thing, like, oh, you can't Patronus over here because then they'll see you or something, like in the other book. And also, this is another pretty big one, at least for me. Why can Albus and Harry and everyone else just see James and Lily's house? Like, they have the Fidelius charm on them. They can't see James and Lily's house without Peter Pettigrew specifically telling them, like, where to look and stuff. Like, they can just see it. Like, the Fidelius charm doesn't even exist, which is the thing that Voldemort was trying to find out and how to get to her house before the series started. Also, people think Harry's going to turn into Voldemort if he drinks the Polyjuice Potion. When does Polyjuice Potion turns people into it? It changes your appearance, but it doesn't change who you are. Like, you don't turn into Voldemort. That doesn't make any sense. Now there's going to be 2 Voldemorts? Like, how? Also, McGonagall says the portraits are only for support for the new headmasters, and they're not for information. You can't get information out of the portraits. They're just for, like, to encourage you on. Snape, that didn't happen for Snape because Snape got information from Dumbledore in the portrait, so he got information on what to do next for the portrait, and it doesn't make any sense. how if they're only for support and not information, when Snape got information. Okay, a couple more things. Oh, never mind. I'm done. Because the last thing was, why did Harry hate his son for being Slytherin if it didn't matter? But we already talked about that. So yeah, those are all the reasons I didn't like The Cursed Child, and this is my least favorite Harry Potter book, and one of my least favorite books of all time. It was really horrible, and I hated so much about it. There was few good things, but not enough to save it. I don't think it is Harry Potter, so I enjoyed being in, like, the place. I enjoyed being at all the Hogwarts stuff. I enjoyed some of it, even though all the characters were just destroyed. But I thought Voldemort World was cool, even if it didn't make sense. It was cool. All the same stuff was pretty cool. There were some nice things I talked about at the beginning, too, but overall, this was just a horrible, horrible book that they tried to get money from, and it just made people angry, which, yeah. I give it a 36.75, and I don't recommend this book to people. It's one of the books that, if you are a big Harry Potter fan, of course, you have to read it, which, I mean, it was a waste of time reading it, but it is, I would recommend it to people if they're a big Harry Potter fan. I read it because I like to read all books in a series, so of course I read it. But if you're just a casual Harry Potter fan and you're just like, or like, you're not that big into Harry Potter and you like just reading books and like, oh yeah, I read Harry Potter. Yeah, I don't recommend this book to you because I don't think you should just, I don't think if you've read Harry Potter and you're like, oh yeah, I remember Harry Potter, I don't think you should go and read this book because it was just so bad and it just, like, made the other Harry Potter books seem just worse. I don't think they're worse. I still think they're amazing. But it just, like, made the Harry Potter thing as a whole. When I think of Harry Potter, I think of the first 7 books. I also think of this book a little bit, too, and how bad it was. So I don't recommend it to people. But I do think that this book had some good in it, very few, but it was just so bad. So 36.75. There's no movie review thing because there was no movie and I didn't go see the play. So I don't even want to see the play, honestly. I mean, it would be interesting to watch, and maybe I would watch it if that was an option, but I don't want to. I don't want to go out of my way just to, like, I don't want to fly to New York just to watch a Harry Potter and the Cursed Child play. But anyways, yeah, this video is not even going to be out for a while, at least for me, because until I've finished the 7th movies, which right now I'm reading the Crimes of Grindelwald screenplay, so after I finish the 7th movie and I do a review on that, then this will come out. But I thought this book was really terrible. Don't read it. But yeah, that was my review. That was the longest Harry Potter video. I had split in multiple chunks just in case my thing ran out of storage because my phone's annoying. But, yeah, don't read it. That's all I have to say. Bye.